Okay.
But yeah, normal is such a relative term, right? I always say like, oh, I'm normal in the sense that I'm like a total whack. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel very normal, but I think that makes it relatable, right?
That makes it relatable.
For any of us.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to kick off this combo with you guys. So we were just chatting a second before, but to update anybody who's watching, we just wanted to have a conversation. We three are friends that actually met originally through Instagram, and we've all share in kind of one common we joined a club, right, that we did not want to join, like at all. But we're all widows. So we were widowed at young ages, and we've been, traveling this journey in the best way that we know how, which, is just one day at a time, one small step, 1 minute at a time sometimes. So I wanted to get us all together so that we could just kind of chat about our journeys. I wanted to introduce you guys to myself, to Brooke, and to Ashley, and then just kind of see where this goes, because these two women, on my screen, it's like on either side, I don't even know where it'll be on the recording, but these two women really inspire me on my journey, and I wanted them to, you to hear from them. So, so do either of you want to go first? Should we raise hands? Just kidding.
What do you think,
Do you
Brooke?
want me? Mine kind of flows into your story a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah, you go.
Okay, so I lost my husband very unexpectedly in October 2017. Is that right? We're almost at 3 years. So 17, 18. Yeah, I can do math. October 2017. And our child turned 1 the same week that we lost Doug. And I didn't like Elisa was just saying, I didn't know anybody other than like my grandmother was a widow, and Doug's grandmother was a widow at one time, and but I didn't know younger people who were widowed. One of our very good friends from Auburn, we lost a good friend. But that was really the only other person I could think of, and she thankfully reached out to me pretty quick. But anyways, yeah, you feel really alone for sure. But I remember, I think it was like after the craziness left, everybody left my house. I remember sitting in my chair having a day. My mom had Hayes, and I was just reading a book. I don't even remember what, and the Lord was like, Brooke, like, people have gone before you on this journey. You are not going to walk it alone. Like, I heard it so clear, and I was like, all right, cool. But it was definitely like an unfolding for that to become like everything the Lord whispers to us, like he whispers stuff in the dark and we hang on to it with all we've got. And then as life goes on, it's like, whoa, that was a real thing I heard from Jesus. Yeah. And, but anyway, so fast forward to March and kind of found out about Ashley. Ashley lives about 45 minutes, an hour away from me. And she's a photographer. One of my best friends is a photographer. So she was creeping on her Instagram stories, and she was like, Brooke, what do I do for Ashley? And I said, well, at this point in the game, I had like books that had really helped me and really sweet gifts people had given me. And I had some things, some treasures that people had given me. So I got on Amazon, ordered some stuff for Ashley. We put together a package, and my friend Lindsay took it to Ashley and had lunch. Ashley, take that from there. Like, how did that go? Was that weird or what?
So cool. It was. But like such a I love that we all met on Instagram too. Like this is such a, like, God can use literally anything for his plan. It's so cool. So Lindsay, yeah. So I lost my husband in March of 2018. I had been his caregiver for 5.5 years at that point. He was in the military, and a whole string of things that happened led to us being in the hospital for a really long time. And he was partially paralyzed and had heart surgery and brain surgery. So it had been like a really long road up to that point, but lost him super unexpectedly in March of 2018. And Lindsay, our mutual friend, reached out to me on Instagram and just was so honest. And it just struck me as like, maybe this is a crazy person, but like she is following this like call to reach out to a total stranger on Instagram. And like, like she, just shared that the Lord had put it on her heart to reach out to me, and that she had a best friend who was also recently widowed at a very young age. I was 31, and I did not know another soul my age. And, being a military spouse, that's something that's kind of in the back of your mind. But I really just didn't have any friends that had walked that. And so I did meet up with Lindsay, and through that met Brooke, who's now become like one of the dearest people in my life. And like, just, this is like such a, like, I'm not thankful that she's walking this journey. I wish I could change this story, but like, I'm sorry we're friends, but I'm so grateful to have that like person who understands. And so that has been such a thing in this journey, that, and also like meeting you, Elisa, that's like, we've met on Instagram too. And it's just, it really is, there's something about having people that understand what you're walking through. And so Chris and I had, he had a dream of starting a nonprofit to benefit wounded, ill, and injured veterans and their spouses through marriage retreats. So we wanted to bring couples in for faith-based marriage retreat where we could introduce them to adaptive recreation, because that was so huge in his recovery. And just like really pour into their marriages, because our marriage really struggled during that time. And so when he passed away, I just didn't really know what that was going to look like anymore with him not in that picture. And there came a point when the Lord placed on my heart that mission was supposed to expand to also love on young widows. And so here I am meeting Brooke, and she's already started this ministry that the Lord so perfectly designed for those two things to come together. And so Crown for Ashes was formed, and Songs in the Night came alongside Crown for Ashes and became our widows ministry. And so that has just been such a huge blessing.
I love that so much. It's so interesting to me because I think we were talking about this the other day of how I found Ashley even online, which I think, Brooke, I think you found me, or did I find you too through Ashley?
I probably found you for Beachbody stuff. I'm sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think you did, but that's what I'm like, it starts to get very confusing. But I know that I think I found Ashley because I was clicking on Disney hashtags, because I was like trying to find, we were like planning a trip to Disney World, and I'm like clicking on all these hashtags, and I ran across her, beautiful page, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's so cute. And then I found out she was a widow, and then I found out she lived in Destin, which I had just moved, not just, but I had moved back a couple years prior from Pensacola. Yeah.
Right.
And I was like, this is so weird. She's like a widow. She like lives in Florida, right near where I was living. I don't know. And I just like reached out and was like, this is weird, but like we should be friends. And, like, and it was so crazy. And then Brooke, you and I have been a part of the same Fit Fam for a while, just doing our workouts together and stuff. So that's been like so amazing. And then the work you guys do together has really inspired me. I know. So when I started my journey, so I became a widow in January of 2014. So in 2014, I lost my husband, Nick, to a rare cancer that he had been fighting kind of off and on. And it was, horrible. Our daughter was 9 months old at the time, and it was, a really, really hard loss. And I remember pretty early on, my doctor and my, grief counselor, everybody was like, you need to join like a widow support group. And so I went through the hospice facility that we had done, which, I actually did all of Nick's care at home, but we had like a facility that like oversaw everything. And, I went through them, and I got connected to a widow support group, and I went to the support group, and everyone was my senior by at least like 30 years. Like the youngest widow in the group that had been like deemed the young one, was 57 years old, and I was 26. So it's not that I couldn't relate. There are things we could relate to, but I was like, I felt very, very alone in my journey. So the thing for me that started out being such a major impact in my life was books. And it's always been that way since I was a little girl, but I've always been obsessed with reading. I would like escape under my bed to read books in the middle of the day, and my mom couldn't find me, right? But so I turned to books when I was early on in my journey, and I read, so many incredible books by incredible, preachers and counselors and pastors. I read quite a few, personal accounts too. but I kind of felt like there was a spot missing. There wasn't a book that I could completely 100% relate to. And it took me listening to God's prompting, right? At first, I kind of tried to force it. I was like, I'm going to write my story, because I'd always, again, loved writing. I'd always wanted to write a book. But it was so crazy how God kind of had that roll out at, exactly the right time that he wanted. And it came after I had actually met a young friend of mine, Judy, who was widowed also at a young age. When I met her, she had just recently gotten remarried. And I remember just being like, I didn't know that widows could build like another life and still incorporate the life of their lost love, right? But still have an incredible life-giving love physically in this world still too. So it was this incredible inspiration. And lo and behold, about a year after meeting Judy, I met Jay, or re-met Jay, and that's a whole story, right? But so I'm now, I like to say, joyfully remarried, still a widow, but also a wife. And now, we have 2 more kids, and he's adopted our Nick and I's oldest daughter, who is now 7. So crazy. But yeah, and then I was able to, write my book and just my story in hopes that it would, reach out and give people hope. And so, that's kind of my story.
And it has, oh my goodness. So just very recently, so the care crate, the one that went to Ashley, now that's like a thing. So
Yeah.
Check it out on our website. Songs in the Night is found at Crown for Ashes website. I'm sure we can link it. But there's a form on there where when you hear of another young widow, give us their name, give us their address, and we'll send them a care crate. And so I was like you, Elisa, like I have read more in the past, 3 years than I've probably read my entire life, because I have just wanted and just craved for wholeness and healing. And I know that Jesus promises it. And I just want my theology and my foundation to be rock solid so that I can build on that. And your testimony has absolutely, in your book, has absolutely spurred us on. And that is something that we have in the care crate. So it's that book. And then Heaven from Randy Alcorn.
Yes.
Rock solid.
That is such a good book. That changed so many things for me. But yeah, I love that you guys do that. So so for those of you watching, Brooke started Songs in the Night, and they do these care crates that basically just really minister to widows. And what's so cool is, testimonies and books. And again, just having that reassurance that there's people who have gone before, right? Made an impact in all 3 of us. And it's so amazing that you guys are doing that. And I love that you're partnering with Crown for Ashes to do that as well. And then Crown for Ashes, you guys held your first retreat, right? And I couldn't even believe you guys put one of your books on each of their beds. I was like, this is the cutest thing I've ever seen. But tell us about your retreat.
Yeah, so like I kind of had said before, the organization started with this retreat mentality and then came to also expand to love on young widows when I became one. And that became part of my path. And so I just really felt the Lord calling that was going to be one heartbeat for the organization. But we were going to have 2 specific missions. And so Songs in the Night just fit so seamlessly into that, because Brooke was already creating this space, this community for widows and encouragement on Instagram, and these beautiful boxes that were going out, which I had been the recipient of and had been so touched by early in my journey. And so the plan, we are raising money right now to build our retreat house. So it's going to be an ADA friendly facility so that all the warrior couples that we bring in feel like they're at home there. And that's also where we'll do our widow retreats. So in the meantime, we were able to have our first widow retreat in March, and that was incredible. Such healing and just community with women that are walking the same path. And so in the meantime, we're doing those here on the Emerald Coast in rented spaces. So ultimately we'll have our own retreat house, but right now we're doing those in rented spaces. But so we have multiple facets of the ways that we're just trying to love on young widows. And we brought Songs in the Night under our 501c3, calling it an umbrella. this year. And that has been such an incredible way. I think a lot of people just don't know how to help widows. You know, it's just not, like I said, I didn't know anybody. You said you didn't know anybody. It's just, you know, you don't know what to do in a situation like that. And so that's kind of how we linked arms.
I agree with that, Ashley. Just the foundation that I had, like, spiritually in the churches I had been in, a lot of focus on, like, James 1:27, love widows and orphans. Doug and I had a bunch of money set aside to hopefully adopt one day. Like, orphan care was a very tangible thing for me and a very huge piece of my heart. But I never, like, that word widow, I just never really, like, grabbed a hold of until I was one. And I remember even telling the Lord after Doug passed away, I was like, this verse has meant so much to me. Like, that is mean of you to, like, make me, like, that's who I'm supposed to be going after. How is my child fatherless, and how am I a widow, when a very specific verse has been something I've been running after since I was 20 something, you know? Like, I just felt that was cruel. But, you know, you feel a lot of things after you lose your spouse, and you're just honest with the Lord about it. And he comes around and he's like, hey, like, trust me, this is going to be cool. That's my child. Hang on one second.
That's such a good point that you make, Brooke, about, like, how you feel all the feelings in the beginning. And I think that has been something that Brooke and I have talked about so much in capturing the hearts of young widows pretty early in their journey, because I think that is such a time that you can either run to the Lord and cling to him, or you can turn away. And I have had many days of anger at the Lord and not understanding how he could be a good God and allow this to happen. And so with every touch point that we have, that is really our focus. So bringing them in for these retreats, we really just want to point them back to, like, these are lies from the enemy, and here's where your identity is. It wasn't in being a wife, and it's not in being a widow. Like, your identity is in your Creator. And so we just really want to capture these sweet, precious women's hearts. And, like, we know what that feels like because we're walking that path too. And so every touch point with the care crates, and Brooke has got some really exciting things on the horizon for us in other ways that people can come alongside widows and link arms with them in ways that people who love widows and people who want to love on widows and don't know how can come alongside them.
For sure. So it goes back to just, like, equipping the church. And when Songs in the Night first kind of became a vision of mine, like, that was the thing the Lord kept telling me, was like, Brooke, equip the church, you know? So it's never going to be like a me thing, like, can't be a me thing or Ashley thing, you know, but it's more so like, all right, this is what we have learned, and, like, hey, church, like, here is how you can step up and be a part. Because, like Ashley was just saying, I don't think I realized until I walked it out how vulnerable you are as a widow. Holy cow. Like, you have lost your person, and if you're parenting, you've lost your child's father, and, like, all of a sudden you're doing it alone. And there's a reason why you see the word widow so much throughout scripture. And there is a reason why the Lord, like, comes so near and defends us and protects us, because there is a battle that takes place over our hearts and over our souls after we bury the person that we wanted to spend forever with. And I know that the Lord wants the church to draw near. And so I think, in February, we're going to roll out something called Widow Sunday. So if your church wants to be a part of Widow Sunday, we're going to hopefully have, like, a 5-minute video, 3 to 5 minute video that the church can show, you know, before the sermon that Sunday. If the pastor chooses to preach on, you know, a widow topic, that would be great. He doesn't have to. But the other thing was, we want to equip the churches that are participating too with just some resources of, like, hey, if someone is widowed in your community, like, here are some places you can direct them so that they can find the community and the love of Jesus that they need. And then also, my personal vision is that the church would fund these care crates, right? So they're about $100 by the time you have all the items that are in it and get it sent out on average. So if people who are wanting to love on young widows can donate money for the care crates, then we can literally get a name and just boom, send it out. Get a name, boom, send it out. And that's a touch point that is created to to be sent out within like the first year for sure of widowhood. Honestly, now that more people are finding out about the care crates, I think we're sending them out within like that first month or two, which is a very precious time to have some truth and show up on your front doorstep, So.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's so cool because like you guys said, it's so crazy because I grew up in the church, right? And so many, there's always so many avenues to support orphans, and there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, so thankful for that. But I remember I sponsored my first orphan when I was like 20, and now we sponsor like 4 or 5, which is so great. But it's so interesting how there's no opportunities to really sponsor widows, and like you said there, it's incredible how vulnerable you can feel, and especially if you have a spouse who maybe didn't even have life insurance or something like that, or a small amount, right? You're struggling to even make ends meet on top of all of these new responsibilities, and it can be quite scary. But I love how you mentioned, that God has a special place in his heart and that he really does come close. And it's crazy the intimacy that you can feel during that time if you choose to lean in, right? And I talk a lot about that, in my book, just because at first I did not choose to lean in. I chose to run away, and I didn't know if I wanted to be a part of church anymore. I didn't know if I could really even accept his love after what happened, right? Because it was really the worst thing I could have ever imagined coming true. And I couldn't figure out, why me? I kept asking why me? And it's so interesting now, I'm approaching 8 years, which is so nutty, but 8 years later, looking back and realizing that there was a moment in time where I got to decide, am I going to choose to let God make good of this? Or am I going to put my foot down and tell him, you know what, you can't have it. I'm going to bury myself in my grief and in my hurt. And I luckily, and thank God, I chose to lean in, not in such a way that I was even like, telling God I for sure believed in him, but in such a way as like, kind of, you prove it to me that you can show up in this. And I don't always recommend that, right? But what's so cool is that whether it's early on, like you said, it's so great that the care crates are going out super early, or even later on when people are ready. I believe that even those books, if they land on someone's shelf, or the sweet items that really just bring comfort, even if those books and those items end up in people's hands and in people's homes, widows' homes, before they're able to really get what they need out of them, eventually they will, right? And that was like one of the first books that really grabbed me was Heaven, the other one that you include in the crates. And I remember the first time I read it, though, I read it when Nick was still sick. And it didn't hit me the way it did, 18 months later. And same, When God Doesn't Make Sense by James Dobson. I love that book. The first time I read it, though, you guys, I kid you not, I read 3 sentences and I threw it across the room and it put a dent in my wall because I was so angry. Yeah. I was so angry. And I'm sure my book has done that to people before too. I'm sure people read it and scoff and like, not going to read this, but eventually those things can serve us. So I just love what you guys are doing so much. You guys really inspire me. So, I've never done one of these on here before, but my followers are about to get a what's this kind of video on my YouTube channel, but I think it's really important to just spread the word. So what I'm going to do is make sure that I link both of your guys' Instagram accounts on here. I'm going to also link the Crown for Ashes website, and that goes right to Songs in the Night, or should I
go to Crown for Ashes and then you'll see Songs in the Night, and then that's where you can
perfect
those details. Yep.
Right, so I'll include both of those there. And then if you click on Songs in the Night too, that's how you can send a care crate. And then also you have an opportunity to donate to Crown for Ashes and helping getting that Widows Retreat and for veterans, that incredible center open. So I'm really excited to do this with you guys. Is there anything else you want to share before we close it out?
No, I'm just so appreciative that you're allowing us to share this. This is such a tangible way that people can show love to widows. I think they're, like you said, they're really I mean, there are treasures in darkness in this time. Like at this, I would change my story if I could, but I have never been more near to the Lord than at this time. And
Amen.
so this is just, we're just hoping to create a few more ways that widows can feel God's love tangibly through other people.
Oh, I love it so much. And it's so true. I think all of us would rewind if we could and change things, but then we wouldn't have what we have now. And there's never, I never say like everything happens for a reason, but I do say that God, he can take even the worst things that happen and turn them to good. And it is crazy how close he will come in the midst of your grief if you let him. So anyway, I love you guys. I wish I could give you like a real hug, but I'll go ahead and close this off and then we can keep chatting. Yay. Bye everybody.